Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. And it's been a couple months, but there's finally an update on the car. So the last we left off, the car was getting dropped off, or was about to get dropped off at TC Design for a roll bar, and that is finally done. So I figured today in this video we'll cover the roll bar, the seat, the harness, and then some of the future things that need to be done quickly in the next couple of months before we can hit the track again. And so let's get right to it. Let's show you the bar. Okay, let's start with the rear of the car. Right off the bat, you'll notice that connecting from the main hoop to the rear points just in front of the shock tower, there's an X-brace. And on some cars, there's a diagonal piece, and on some cars, there's an X-brace. And I think the X-brace is there to give a little more rigidity kind of to the roll bar. And I think you get some advantage of some chassis rigidity as well, or an increase in stiffness. There's probably some downsides to it, like weight and potentially blocking the rear view mirror. But in this instance, or in this application, it does not block my rear view mirror, and the increase in safety is welcomed here. So I've got no complaints about the X-brace. The 2 points that the rear of the roll bar is welded to are just in front of the shock tower. And you can see there's these large plates that they've welded into the chassis and then welded the bars to this plate. And I think that's there to help spread the load out. Tony likes to weld these 2 points in front of the rear shock tower. I've seen one other car that's had his work done, at least a Subaru of this chassis, and he likes to weld in front. I've seen IAG cars, IAG performance cars, again, same year, or at least same generation, same chassis, and they weld behind the rear shock tower. I don't know if there's an advantage or disadvantage to any of that, right? I guess maybe the bars going further might add more weight, but I'm not entirely sure, why you would choose one or the other. I just know that it needs to be near the shock tower. So that's pretty cool. Let me see if I can get the camera off the tripod here and show you the size of this plate. Okay, so here's the plate, and hopefully you guys can see this and that it's in focus. It's a pretty big plate here. So here's the bar coming down, and you see the plate going all the way around here. So it's a rather large plate welded to the frame rails. And again, I think that's there to help spread the load in case the car does experience a rollover, and also attempt to keep the bars from puncturing through. So that's pretty cool. I think for those of you guys with bolt-in bars, I know that I've seen those bars before, and the plates are they're significantly smaller, and I don't know if you should be making them bigger or not, but those plates are there for a reason, and it's nice to see that we've got some pretty beefy ones here. Okay, so let's show you the main hoop here. It's difficult to show you the two other points that are welded to the chassis. It looks like it goes down into this corner here. So I imagine the frame rail of the car runs along the door still here, and I imagine there's a plate maybe going down and creating like a box, like a corner right here. They did a great job of cutting the trim, and I don't want to pull it back to look at it, but there is a ledge here for the rear seats, and if you can imagine, it kind of turns. So I think they've probably welded plates to form like a corner of a box here and then attach the bar or weld the bar to that. Overall, it looks really good. Other side's the same. Let's see here. The diagonal bar on the main hoop is all one piece. And then the harness bar is a two-piece bar that runs across that welds into the diagonal bar. Let's see. I think the position of this bar is relative to the seat. So I think they take into account the angle of the straps coming off the seat. And so depending on the seat and the driver, they may move this bar up or down by a couple inches. The other thing that we've done here is we've cut the headliner and tried to move, or at least get as much of the main hoop as high as we can into the roof of the car. So I don't think you can see that from this angle, and let me see if I can reposition the camera here to show you that better. Okay, so as you can tell here, the headliner on the rear of the car has been cut off, and Tony and I had a brief discussion on this. Originally I wasn't planning on cutting the headliner, and when he asked the question, I kind of, whether or not I wanted to cut it, I asked back, well, what's the advantage? And I understand that this bar wants to be as close, or you want to have this bar as close to the roof as possible. What I didn't realize was that the headliner took so much space up. So Tony mentioned that if we cut the headliner out, that we could bring the bar about 1.5 to 2 inches further up, closer to the roof. And now that it's gone, that's really evident. They've done a really good job of bringing the main hoop as close as they can to the top of the door frame, as well as the roof of the car. As you can see, these white lines running across the door frame, those are your side impact airbag curtains, and the bars are actually so tight that they're pushing up against the airbag curtain, and they're black. You can see they're all black here, and that was from the painting process. It's just there's so little space to work with that some of the airbag curtain got painted black, which is no big deal. With regards to, sound and whatnot, it's definitely a little bit louder in the car, but that's no big deal for me. I think the biggest thing is safety here, which is why we're doing all of this. And if the car can be safer because we cut the headliner, I'm fine with that. The only other downside to the headliner being removed would be the class in which your car is placed in. Some classes, like street classes and some events, may require that you have a complete headliner. Some will say that it's okay to trim a headliner if it's for safety. And some will say if you cut the back half, you fall in a different class. So that is the one downside, I would say, to cutting the headliner, is that depending on the rules of whoever you're running with, they may have some criteria around the headliner and how your car gets classified. So you may get bumped into a higher class with cars that make a lot more power, or have wider rims, or wider tires, whatever it may be, simply because you've cut the headliner. So if you do plan on doing this, take that into account. Okay, so the last thing here is the seat and the harness, and this is really why we did all of this, right? The bar was installed so I could get a harness in safely. And so the harness we're using here is a Racetech harness. I believe it is a 6-point harness with what they call, it's designed specifically to run with a head restraint. So if you look at the strap here, this strap is 2 inches up high, right where a head restraint device would sit on your shoulders and on your neck. The 2 inches there is so it sits inside the belt saddle properly. You can run a 3-inch, but from everything I've read, 3 inches sometimes can be a little finicky to get into your belts. And then as you go down, the belts then widen up to 3 inches, which is what you want in terms of spreading the load out in an impact. You definitely don't want to run a 2-inch and then not run a Hans device or a head restraint device. The belt has a quick release, has these nice little Velcro pieces, so I can flip them over and they'll Velcro to the seat and stay out of the way. let's see, the seat itself has been upgraded. So previously I had a Sparko Pro 2000, and prior to going in and having this all done, realized that my shoulders, as the seat was comfy and it fit well, but my shoulders covered the harness holes. And so that's a no-no. From everything I read and the angles and all that stuff, that's a big no-no. So went to a Race Tech because they have a tall version of their seats. And as you can see, this is actually a wide and a tall seat from Race Tech. And if you look over here, which you may or may not be able to tell, the belt goes up and right over my shoulders and straight back through the shoulder hole. So if I was any taller, I might start to cover this hole up a little bit. The other thing you can do is remove the padding on the bottom of the seat, which is about 1.5 inches to 2 inches. But the padding's nice, and I would never ever want to get rid of this padding. I would love to keep this. So wide and tall seat it is. I think this model's a 4009 with the head restraint here for the side impacts to keep my head in check, because obviously a head restraint device is really just kind of forward. Believe it or not, the seat actually fits the car. So the wings, the shoulder wings, it does hit the B-pillar, and I think you can actually push the seat back and it kind of flexes a little bit, and does hit the transmission tunnel. I think they did some work here with the carpeting or whatnot to make this all fit, but it fits. And this, I think this is a pretty big seat. I think there are bigger seats in the market, but this is pretty big to be as it is. And it is comfy. I've got definitely more leg room down by my thighs, and I know I can buy some padding and shove it in here if I want to make this tighter. One of the really nice parts is right around your sides. There's a lot of material here, and it definitely kind of conforms and hugs you. It was a little tighter, like 2 days ago, and I don't know if it's because I had more to eat, or it's kind of broken in a little bit, but I imagine I can again shove some more padding in here and make the entire seat tighter. The shoulders, although the Sparko is nice, I kind of always felt that my shoulders were a little too crunched in. In this seat, it's perfect. And this is sort of the reason why I had to go with a wide. I could have probably gone with a normal height seat and remove the padding, but obviously wanted the padding, so I went with a tall one. And then with regards to the wide one, I sat in a normal seat and my shoulders were so scrunched together and I couldn't actually rest back against the seat, which is a big no-no, right? Obviously you want to be strapped in tight right against the seat. So that was mandatory. So mandatory was it had to have been wide, and then tall was sort of like, I wanted the cushion. So that's it, I think, with regards to the seat. Oh, the factory or the Sparko slider is still installed. It does wiggle a little bit. So when I'm out of the car, I can wiggle the seat a little bit, and that's just playing the slider. At some point, we'll take the slider off and just bolt the seat directly to the base. Then maybe in the future, because we have left the option to build the front cage around the driver, if we go that far and do that, then maybe we'll weld the seat to the car itself. Well, and I think that covers it for the seat. Now the submarine, some of the things that I need to do in the future, or things that I want to do in the coming weeks before we hit the track again, is the data logger. So first off, the submarine belt bolts underneath me, right? And that's where the data logger used to sit. And so I want to find a new place for the data logger. On top of that, I'm using a different version of the data logger. So the one we were previously using was a Race Capture Track. The Cayman, my other car, had a Race Capture Pro, and that car's up for sale now. So I've taken that data logger out and I plan to use it here, and we'll cover that in a completely different video. I need to deal with cooling with the car. So before all of this happened, really the project for the winter was deal with oil cooling and coolant temperatures. And I haven't done any of that. And some of that was because I made a couple phone calls around, and the only people who made a radiator for this car was Killer B. 2 weeks ago, I talked to Ron Davis. Sounds like they were putting something in the works or getting something going. So hopefully we'll see here in the next 3 or 4 weeks whether or not they have something. And if they do, make a decision between Killer B and Ron Davis, which way we're going to go. And get that all in. And then finally, I need to realign and re-corner balance the car, right? So one of the reasons why I'm waiting for the alignment and the corner balancing is I do want the radiator in. If it's lighter, if it's heavier, if it increases fluid capacity, whatever it may be, it has an effect on weight. And then finally, we've added seats, we've added a harness, we've added a roll bar, we've taken the rear seats out, we put bigger wheels on the car, bigger tires on the car, bigger brake kit on the front of the car, bigger rotors in the rear of the car. It's a few pounds here and there, and I'm sure it's thrown everything off. And I want to go back and redo the alignment and the corner balancing to address all that, but I don't want to do it now, change something in a month, and then have to do it again. So I'm just going to wait until it's all done and then get it done all in one go. Then hopefully, we can hit the track by August. I think that's going to be the goal. And really that's because we're waiting to see what's going to happen with the radiator. I think Ron said it's going to take him 3 to 4 weeks to finalize the design. Then I don't know how long it'll take him to make it. If I decide to buy it, then I got to install everything, which shouldn't take too long. But I'm factoring in, month and a half fudge factor before that's done. And the last thing would be, so obviously, or you may or may not know this, but I carry a bunch of tools and I carry the track set of tires to the track. With the bar as it sits, you can see that space is limited, and I may have to get creative on how I can carry a set of wheels with me. Previously, I would just drop the rear seats, throw a set of tires in there, and it would be fine. Now I don't have seats above I don't have rear seats, so I don't want to just put the wheels on there and have it, accidentally cut up a wire or tear up a wire or something like that. So I might want to make a platform that I can put on top of that rear deck, that rear area where the seats used to be, to kind of create a smooth, even platform that I can put wheels on, or something like that. So we've got to figure something out here. We'll test fit it with the wheels first, and if it doesn't all fit, then we'll start to get creative and see if we can come up with a solution. Yeah, and I think that is about it. So covered a lot of information there. If you guys have any questions, if there's something I missed, or if you just have an opinion on whatever we've done to the car here, please don't hesitate to post it in the comments section. And as always, when I have something more meaningful to show you guys on the progress of the car, I will make a video on it. And I think that is about it. All right, guys, we'll see you at the next video, and thank you very much for watching. Take care. Bye.